At that time, you'd never guess that Damian Lillard's iconic buzzer beater would help the OKC Thunder win an NBA title. But that heartbreaking shot wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new era in OKC, because that moment set off a series of events that led to the Thunder becoming NBA champions and possibly the NBA's next dynasty. Before we go into the series of events that turned the Thunder into NBA champions, we have to talk about the man in charge of making these moves, and that is Sam Presti.
Sam Presti pretty much made 2 rebuilds. He survived. He went from Seattle to OKC at the age of 30, making these big decisions, moving on from guys like Ray Allen.
18 years, if my math is not mistaken, that this guy was a GM of this franchise. And at that time, he was the second youngest GM. In 2007, they had the number 2 overall pick and they drafted Kevin Durant. Ray Allen was traded for the 5th overall pick, and that was Jeff Green. He also let Rashard Lewis go in a sign and trade for a second and a trade exception of $9 million. He filled the trade exception by acquiring Kurt Thomas and 2 future first rounders, and one of them ended up being Serge Ibaka. The Sonics went 20-62 with Kevin Durant winning the Rookie of the Year, which landed him the 4th overall pick. With that 4th pick, that's where they drafted Russell Westbrook, and this marked the end of Presti's run in the Supersonics. In their first season, the Thunder finished 23-59 and landed the 3rd pick in the 2009 draft, where he picked James Harden, and this is where he formed the OKC Big Three for years to come. The next season, the Thunder experienced one of the largest turnarounds by improving to a record of 50-32, clinching the 8th seed, and becoming the youngest team in NBA history to make the playoffs. More importantly, this marked the end of the rebuild and started their rise to contention. This sounds a lot familiar to what Sam Presti did recently as well. So this marks that 2 times where he turned a rebuilding situation into contenders.
And to all the young guys, they just know that like what happened recently was they got Shai in a trade, and then they drafted a bunch of young guys and developed them together under Mark Daigneault. This was pretty much the same thing, for those kids that didn't start watching basketball till this era of what happened in the early 2010s, right? Barring a couple of few years of like injury-ridden seasons, this OKC team with James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant was essentially what Shai, Chet, and J-Dub ended up becoming.
In 2012, however, they swept the defending champions, the Dallas Mavericks. They beat your Lakers in 5, and they were down 2 games against the San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference Finals, but they were able to come back and advance to their first finals since 1996. And in that final, they faced a bigger Big Three in LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and the Miami Heat won the NBA championship in 5 games.
It was just unfortunate. If they had faced any other team, these guys would have been champions then, and Sam Presti's name, how it was now with the Shai team, would have been back then. It was just sucked that they played against the Big Three Heat team. They were extra motivated, and they obviously handled business pretty handily in 5 games.
Their rise to contention, I guess, happened in wrong time, wrong place, wrong time situation for the OKC Thunder. But who knows? If they faced any other team, maybe a certain someone doesn't snake the franchise, which we'll get into a little bit later. But what happened in the beginning of next season was Sam Presti and James Harden could not agree on a contract extension. So therefore, he was traded to the Houston Rockets.
Third year, we in the finals against the Heat. That was Bron's first championship. That summer, we go to the Olympics. We win a gold medal. Summertime traded. A couple days before the first game. They did that well. $4 million.
James Harden would go on to become one of the best offensive players in the NBA and went on to win the NBA MVP in 2018.
So I want to make that one thing clear, the last part you said. James Harden would not have been the same if he stayed in OKC. He still would have been the guy you still would have kept over a guy like Serge Ibaka.
But despite Harden's departure, the Thunder were still contenders, and Durant won MVP in 2014. So his level just kept on rising and rising. Obviously, Westbrook over the years, level kept on rising and rising. But there was one issue. They never made it back to the NBA Finals. So at the end of the day, it wasn't amounting to anything. 2016, Billy Donovan comes in, replaces Scott Brooks, and the Thunder went all the way to the Western Conference Finals, where they were up 3-1 against the defending champions and the best regular season of all time with a 73-9 Golden State Warriors. But what happened next was pretty embarrassing.
You're a team that good. I don't care how good the Warriors were that year. I get it. They were 73-9. But a team with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook led team with Serge Ibaka still there, you had to close the business. You could have been the team that would have been like, oh, we beat the 73-9 team. Ultimately, we know what happened with that 73-9 team. They lost. They blew their own 3-1 against the Cavs in the finals. But you could have been like, well, okay, clearly it's a regular season type team, right? Not like those 72-10 Bulls who handled business back then.
That was a dark time in obviously Oklahoma City, because what happened next was absolutely, I guess, I don't know how to describe it. It's so controversial that the whole NBA world erupted. And that is that Sam Presti traded Serge Ibaka to the Orlando Magic for Domantas Sabonis and Victor Oladipo.
The weakest move I've ever seen from a superstar. Plain and simple.
F off to your entire team. To say, no, I'd rather go with the player who kicked Steven Adams in the nuts.
He joined the Warriors, the team that eliminated the OKC Thunder. And that triggered a series of events of starting off with Westbrook and Durant beefed.
Our gymnastics team was so dominant that Kevin Durant told me he wants to play for them next year. And I gotta tell you, I don't think you'd start for that team, Kevin. Yeah. Russell Westbrook, what do you think? Yeah.
Russ got extended and broke Oscar Robertson's record in single-season triple-doubles and went on to win the MVP, but lost in the first round of the playoffs, while Kevin Durant won the NBA title and was the finals MVP. Golden State Warriors getting revenge on the Cleveland Cavaliers that year.
It was clear that Russell Westbrook wasn't going to be able to do it by himself.
That is when Sam Presti stepped in and tried his best to help Russell Westbrook by flipping Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis, the pieces from a Serge Ibaka trade, to land Paul George, who was a perennial all-star for the Indiana Pacers. Fast forward to 2019, Paul George went on to finish third in MVP and DPOY voting and made the All-NBA first team and All-NBA defensive first team, where he led the league in steals.
Like, people think about Paul George now. Paul George, before the leg injury, was a monster. He was a young guy that led those Indiana Pacers team against these Miami Heat teams and gave him trouble in the conference finals. Paul George coming to this Thunder team was a big deal because I wanted him as a Laker fan. He was one of my favorite players at the time. And Russell Westbrook, on top of that, made him a better player as well. He got to play with the dynamic point guard. Obviously, no offense to guys like George Hill, who he played with in Indiana, but Russell Westbrook's a different animal.
But the Thunder went on to face the Trailblazers in the first round, where they ran into a very hot Damian Lillard, and this is where everything fell apart.
Lillard, long range three, and it's good at the buzzer!
It is 1 a.m. right now as I'm recording this video, and Woj drops the biggest Woj bomb ever.
For unprotected future first-round picks, a protected future first-round pick, 2 pick swaps, and outstanding rookie point guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
2019 free agency this whole month is about to go down in history as the greatest offseason in NBA history.
And would Kawhi Leonard have gone ahead and picked the Clippers if George was not coming with him?
I don't believe Kawhi Leonard was going to go to the Clippers without a second star coming in.
Sam Presti pulled off one of the biggest blockbusters in NBA history, and he did this by doing 2 smart things. Number 1, he hit the subscribe button and smashed the like button because he knew that this is where you could get consistent NBA content. Even though he didn't exist back then, he still knew that Beyond the Basket is gonna be here and gonna create some epic NBA bangers. But number 2, he leveraged the reigning NBA Finals MVP in Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard literally held free agency that year.
That trade was monumental because no one thought Paul George was going to get moved because he just signed an extension, right? So obviously he put that ultimatum to especially the Raptors and reportedly to the Raptors and obviously the Clippers. Bring me Paul George and I'll join your team. Otherwise, he's probably going to be a Laker. Lakers at the time acquired Anthony Davis as well. So there was a good chance that they were going to make a big 3 of LeBron, Kawhi Leonard, and Anthony Davis, which obviously scared the Clippers because they're trying to be, quote unquote, beat the older brother. Never gonna happen with the LA Lakers. But that trade, me and you were at a relative's engagement party, and that trade like broke, I think, close to midnight PST time, like between 9 p.m. to midnight PST essentially.
This was very late, and obviously that night was not a great night as a Raptor fan, but at the end of the day, Kawhi Leonard did give us what we wanted. The Clippers pulled it off, but Sam Presti didn't held off, right? At the end of the day, you know, Paul George was at peak value coming off of his MVP race and obviously DPOY race. And number 2, he just leveraged it. He's like, yo, you guys need him, because if you don't get him, you're not getting Kawhi Leonard, right? So like, give me 5 first-round picks, give me 2 swaps, give me Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who went on to become a very good NBA player, if I'm not mistaken. But that's what happened. Presti leveraged it and did the best move possible, and that obviously marked the first series of changes that OKC was going through, because later in that offseason, they traded away Russell Westbrook to the Rockets for Chris Paul and a first-round pick. marking the start of Sam Presti's second rebuild, I guess, in this franchise. There was one major issue. They made the playoffs next year. 5th place and eventually lost to the Rockets in 7. But two major things happened in that playoff series and that year in general. There was emergence of a future MVP and the arrival of a defensive lockdown.
Montreal's very own Lou Dort, undrafted from Arizona State, going up against a guy that he probably looked up to as an Arizona State player, which was James Harden, who was a Sun Devil himself. Was able to not obviously completely lock him down, but give him the hardest trouble. Because at that time, James Harden was on the top of his game as probably was the best.
Harden was
outside of Durant was probably the best offensive player
Harden
in
was
the game.
unstoppable one-on-one.
Yeah.
People had to double team him. Ricky Rubio because that step back move was so nasty. Ricky Rubio of the Utah Jazz was literally guarding him from behind.
Yeah.
Because that's how insane that move was. Harden was nuts. And the fact that this random Canadian from Montreal and obviously by way of Arizona as well.
Arizona State.
Arizona
Wildcats will hate that he said that.
Yeah. Arizona State just came in and almost literally locked him up. And remember the game 7? He literally had him locked up and dropped 30 points himself.
Yeah.
Obviously,
most points I think by either an undrafted rookie or a rookie in a game 7. Unfortunately, it was Harden who got that game-sealing block on him to close out that series.
The Thunder traded away Chris Paul to the Suns for another first-round pick, and the actual rebuild started.
They were like, nah, we need to move off of Chris Paul right now.
We're like, we gotta go full tank.
You deserve a lot of credit. Again, Beyond the Basket did not exist back then, but you were like, these guys are gonna be good and gonna make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I'll give you all the credit for back then.
That was probably the best prediction I've ever made. But moving on, as you expected, the Thunder went 22-50, and they had a high lottery pick where they drafted Josh Giddey in the 2021 NBA draft. Giddey was later traded for Alex Caruso, who became the unk of a championship-winning team at the age of 30.
Crazy part about that is Alex Caruso played under Mark Daigneault for the OKC Blue, which is the G League team of the Thunder as well.
That's crazy.
So he reunited with him in 2024.
But the 2022 draft was the game changer. The Thunder sucked yet again, and it led to the number 2 pick overall, and that's where they selected Chet Holmgren. And with the 12th pick, which they got from obviously the LA Clippers, that's when they got Jalen Williams, who became an all-NBA player and obviously an all-NBA defensive player in the future as well. And in the second round, they drafted another Jalen Williams because they thought one wasn't enough, so they might as well use depth at center and obviously at the name as well.
Chet was supposed to be the number 2 or even the number 1, right? Because at the time Shai was emerging, he wasn't there yet as a superstar player, right? Chet was, before that year, was supposed to be the number 1 pick, arguably, right? Then Jabari Smith came, obviously he went 3rd, and Paolo Banchero came. It was interchangeable between the 3 of them. They got Chet Holmgren. But it was J-Dub who emerged out of, obviously got the opportunity with Chet being hurt, but J-Dub is the one that emerged to be that secondary ball handler next to Shai, to be that all defensive guy he was this year, all second team, to help also help Lou Dort and the rest of this team defensively with Chet, and took reins as as of right now, the second guy on the team on a championship level team.
Shai said himself that he never ever wants Jalen Williams to ever leave his side, which is obviously when a guy who does everything for you, you don't want anyone of that caliber to leave your side. But moving on to the timeline, the next year, the Thunder made the play-in, and like you said, without Chet Holmgren playing a game because he unfortunately fractured his leg in the beginning of the season where he missed his entire rookie year. They lost in the play-in to the New Orleans Pelicans, but in the 2023 NBA draft, Presti traded up 2 spots and got Cason Wallace, who essentially was another defensive
keeping the defensive identity and the guards so that makes it Shai, who's a good defensive player himself but doesn't have to have that responsibility. Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, right? You keep going down the list, these guys were doing it.
The next season, the Thunder finished 1st place, but were bounced out in the second round by the eventual Western Conference champs, the Dallas Mavericks. In the offseason, they added Isaiah Hartenstein, which ended up, I guess, being the final piece of the puzzle.
Sam Presti, boy genius at the time, now man genius, I guess you want to say it, realized that they needed more physicality at the big spot, the center spot. Go out and get Isaiah Hartenstein, who had a great year with the New York Knicks.
This is literally deja vu. It literally is from what happened in obviously the early 2010s. Sam Presti pulled it off again because what happened in 2025, the OKC Thunder had the best regular season in almost a decade with the 68 wins, the last one being obviously the 73-9 Warriors. They had the best defense in the NBA, the highest point differential ever in a season, 2 all-NBA defense players, 2 All-NBA players, and the league's MVP, and they went on to become your 2025 NBA champions. Damian Lillard's historic buzzer beater triggered a series of events that led OKC Thunder to become not only just NBA champions, but one of the greatest NBA teams of all time, and it could potentially lead to the NBA's next dynasty. The OKC Thunder are the second youngest team in NBA history to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy. The average age of an NBA championship roster is at 28.8, and OKC's 24.8. They arrived 4 years ahead of schedule. So my question to you is, will the OKC Thunder be the next NBA's dynasty?
I'm gonna be positive and I'm gonna say yes. Yes, this playoff run wasn't the easiest for them considering how good they were during the regular season, but I personally think that only makes them better. I 100% believe that these guys will be the next dynasty. They're that good, they're that young, they're only gonna get better in my opinion. Regardless of the competition, these guys are still will be there.
On top of that, they still have the most picks in the NBA for the next 5 to 7 years. Since 2019, there has been 7 different NBA champions, which is the longest span in NBA history. The Thunder have all the talent, all the youth, and now all the experience to break that chain as they look to become this decade's dynasty. And if you guys enjoyed this video, you will enjoy this video that's popping up on screen. This is our NBA free agency winners and losers. So we'll catch you guys over there, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.